My name is Sabine Grunwald, and this talk is about care-inspired soil ethics. Soil degradation and loss in soil health and quality have been amplified by climate change, population growth, and also a pronounced anthropogenic economic growth orientation at global scale. And this presentation will provide the core tenets of a pluralistic integral soil ethics grounded in soil care and a biocentric perspective. The concept of care ethics differs profoundly from the anthropogenic orientation that has undergirded land resource and agricultural management. Care ethics allows to shift toward regenerative management in support of human flourishing, soil health, and a brown carbon future, in essence to increase the sequestration of soil carbon. Soil ethics aims to negotiate the paradoxes of competing individual and community needs to use soils, polarized valuation schemes, and the complexity of cultures with diverse forms of sovereignty and local, regional, and global scales. So the idea here is not so much focused on right or wrong, but to negotiate different possibilities most skillfully. Care ethics is rooted in a meta-modern outlook, elevating the care principle and healthy balanced relations between soil and humans. Now, what are the three important pillars of the PISA, the pluralistic integral soil ethics? The first one is focused on soil and environmental valuation and people's moral standards towards soils. In essence, virtue and deontological ethics. The spectrum of soil value attribution is quite large, from soil-centric bio to anthropocentric. When we look at soil values, they cover this whole spectrum from sacredness to naturalness to valueless. This ethics explores meaning of virtue, which is the quality of being morally good in regard to soil and the environment. Now, the second pillar is focused on soil and environmental literacy, in essence, consequentialist and utilitarian ethics. It arises based out of soil and environmental data, facts, knowledge, maps, assessments, and models. Here, soil is conceptualized as a measurable object in an ecosystem. The focus in the second pillar is to assess soil and human efficiencies and the consequences on soils through understanding cause-effect relations. For example, stressors or causes, for example, mining, timber management, global climate change, and the list is long. And also understanding consequences, in essence, the change in soil quality, function, service, health, and security. Now, the third pillar is focused on soil and environmental competency and awareness, in essence, ethics of care. Here, the idea is that to personalize soils, to make them one's own, to sense, feel, experience soil and nature, for example, through mindfulness practices. One can focus fully on soil care, which is focused to foster intimate, immediate, and also the felt subjective and intersubjective deep relation with soil and nature. There's an empathic component to relate with soil, to evoke care for soil and all sentient beings, including the organisms in soil. And this occurs at a non-conceptual level, at a personalized level, in essence, focusing on psycho-spiritual way of knowing and experiencing nature and soils. Now, how does this all fit together, this multi-tier system of PISA? We see here on top the people and soil ecosystems are focused on human security and soil environmental security. And these Three different pillars on the right-hand side in blue indicate, in essence, the progression. First, to explore the plurality of different values from human, but also from the soil's perspective, that culminate to identify what type of value support human flourishing, well-being of all. But also asking what promotes soil health, soilness, and naturalness. This feeds into the second pillar, asking questions about maximizing the utility of human and ecosystem security, and also to optimize efficiencies. For example, this can be accomplished using specific methodology, for example, pedoeconometrics methods to identify efficiencies and causes and effects, for example, through the data envelopment analysis. The focus is on the understanding consequences. And this gives room to identify not only the efficiencies focused on human security, but also on soil and ecosystem indicators that can be then fed into the third pillar, in essence, making soils one's own, soil care practices and capacity building. The third pillar is clearly focused also on participation of people that personalize soils, creating a balance ideally between human and soil environmental security. Now, what are the characteristics of an ethics of care that stand out? First, ethics of care emphasizes interpersonal relationships, in essence, and collective thinking of shared humanity and interdependence, relational autonomy, impartiality, and also empathic concern. Especially healthy relationship building through emotions, for example, sympathy, empathy, compassion, in support of morally healthy relationships for the greater good. Care ethics also touches on metamodern affective sensibilities, in essence, the principles of regeneration and also participation, rather than an overemphasis on individualism and modernist culture of more profit and power. It also goes beyond postmodern ambiguities and divisiveness. An ethics of care is generative, aiming to bring forth human flourishing through regenerative agroforest management, climate-smart agriculture, and preservation of sacred and unique natural soils. Now, from a psychological perspective, soil care arises from a compassionate, lived, emotive relationship between carer, in essence, the person or community, and the cared for, the soil, land, and nature. Care ethics depends upon mutuality of relationships. In particular, for example, cultures that appreciate and love soils and nature, and this joy is then reflected back to the lover. So an artistic, a poetic component is part also of an ethics of care. Soil care is associated with people's closeness to personalized soils, and in essence, making them one's own through sensing, feeling, touching, the experience in and with nature. Soil care is both personal and impersonal. It mimics the personal care that we know from close family relations, in essence focused on mindfulness, tenderness, and intimacy, where the idea is to focus on the immediate lived experience right here in the present moment, an appreciation of soils. But there's also an impersonal component of soil care. In essence, the soil care concepts extended to communities, all sentient beings and organisms in soil, planet Earth, and even future generations, that is more abstract, distant, and impersonal. Now, when we take a closer look at the valuation and the relations to soils, we can see a whole spectrum. Important is that cultural shifts that value equally human and soil environmental security are based also on a combination of soil as an object and also as a subject, in essence forming a meta-soil model. But it clearly also needs to give room to personalize soils and make them our own. Now, what are these components, or what does the spectrum really cover? So first, soil, nature, land deserves veneration when considered to be holy or divine, carrying transpersonal cosmic value on what we see on the right-hand side. Naturalness refers to soilness as the intrinsic value of being soil, as a living and breathing organism with its own agency and purpose. Then care for soils is grounded in compassion and an intimate and mutually fulfilling relationship between people and soil, land, nature. So equal value is important here in the attribution to soils, life, and humans. In essence, an equal balance. Both preservation and conservation of soils aim to protect soils, but from different justifications. The preservation of soils is grounded in nature essentialism and adopts an biocentric perspective, while conservation of soils adopts an anthropocentric stance. Soil conservation is rooted in a belief that men control soil and the land to derive benefits for people, for example, through ecosystem services or agricultural food production and others. The security of soils refers to the freedom from risk of losing functionality, goods and services, and sustainability of life on Earth. Security considers vulnerabilities, threats, for example, through global climate change and land use change, and resilience of soils as an ecosystem. Soil sustainability is associated with good stewardship for future generations. And soil quality, soil health, and soil fertility are tightly coupled to agricultural systems. The production objectifies and commodifies soils as a resource to be used and managed to produce food, fiber, and goods to support people, in essence, an extrinsic motivation, while exploitation of soils is associated with distraction without attribution of value to soil and the land. So in summary, the value spectrum of soil ranges from soil bio to anthropocentric value attributions. Thank you very much for listening to this short talk. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me.